The New York Times is reporting on a disastrous news story about a drone strike in Afghanistan. They say 3 American airstrikes in the southeastern Afghan province of Paktika killed at least 17 civilians. The first strike hit a pickup truck carrying Haji Rozuddin, a local elder on his way to mediate a land dispute. Also in the truck were 4 of Mr. Rozuddin's bodyguards and 7 other people. By the way, this guy had bodyguards because the Taliban was viciously opposed to him, so he needed protection at all times from the Taliban. A second strike soon after killed 2 people who had come to pick up the bodies. A third strike killed 3 others who had climbed a small hill to try to see what had happened. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, this is actually official U.S. policy. Obama said he would reel it back in. Apparently he hasn't. But there are a few different kinds of drone strikes. One is a signature strike, one is a personality strike, one is a double tap. A signature strike is when we just kind of attack and don't really know who we're attacking. A personality strike is when we have some sort of information about somebody who's a target, we know where they are, based usually on figuring out where their cell phone is, and then you attack where their cell phone is, which still isn't totally accurate all the time. But the personality strike, at least you have some evidence of where said bad guy is. And the double tap is when you strike, and then you circle back around, and when first aid comes to help, when an ambulance comes to help, or people come to help, you kill those people too. That's unbelievable in so many ways. I mean, people probably, your gut reaction, you would just assume that, I mean, come on, the U.S. doesn't do that, right? No, it happened here, and it happens all the time. It's so common they have a name for it. They say, yeah, it's a double tap. There's a lot to say about that, but I'm going to digress for a second to continue here. A former drone operator, or actually it's more than just one, it's multiple former drone operators, have come out and explained what's really going on behind the scenes, and it isn't pretty with this drone program. So apparently many of the drone operators drink on the job, and there's lax oversight. And this idea that you probably have, that I certainly had at one point, of like this, super precise, laser-guided situation where we always get the right people and it's down to a T, it's down to a science, and we rarely use drones. No, there are people who show up every day to work and their job is to fly a Predator drone and kill people in random places in the Middle East. And like I said, oftentimes the evidence is non-existent. And they're still flying and they're still attacking anyway. And they describe, get this is from former drone operators who are now struggling with what they did after the fact. They say that in the context of these rooms where they're with these other drone operators, that they describe children as, quote, fun-sized terrorists and TITs. Now, TIT stands for terrorists in training. So, guilty enough. Hey, you're Middle Eastern, kind of guilty. So, I don't care how young you are. Maybe we have to, and this is the next thing here, they have a motto, maybe we have to cut the grass before it grows too tall. Fun-sized terrorists, tits, terrorists in training, we got to cut the grass, man. You don't want this person to maybe at some point in the future, maybe not, become a terrorist, so we should kill them now. No, see, that would make you a terrorist. Like, I know people struggle with it. The idea that, what do you mean? We have an army, and we have rules of engagement, and we have uniforms. So when we do violence, it's not terrorism by definition. Well, actually, by the standard definition of terrorism, which is doing violence for some sort of political or religious reason against civilians, well, that's exactly what this is. So, yeah, oftentimes state violence is terrorism. I'm very comfortable with calling this terrorism. Now, you might not be, but that's why you probably need to sit down and reevaluate and try to determine what kind of biases and what kind of prejudice you're subject to. Because we all have them baked in. They're all built into the system when you're raised in a culture that tells you, oh, we're always the good guys. We're the good guys. We're the good guys. And to be fair, it's not just Americans that are taught we're always the good guys. People in all different cultures are told we're always the good guys. Well, sometimes you're not. You know, I'm of the radical belief that your actions define who you are. You are what you do. So when you're massacring random toddlers and random children in the Middle East and you call them fun-sized terrorists and you have no evidence they're guilty of anything, but you kill them anyway, yeah, you're a terrorist. That's exactly what you fucking are. So you might struggle with that, but tough shit. You're probably, so far up your own ass of U.S. propaganda and bullshit that you can't see straight. So I want to give you some more here because I think this is also very important. Brandon Bryant, who's a former Air Force drone operator himself, said, and I quote, "You kill 4 and you create 10. Is that really what you're trying to achieve?" So he says, that's cute. You guys think this is actually helping to stop terrorism? That's adorable. No, you kill 4 maybe and you create 10. And that's not when we just get civilians. And even when we get civilians, we're going to create more terrorists. And guys, this is a really important aspect of radicalization. Now, don't get me wrong. Is there such thing as standalone religious or political extremism and fundamentalism that can lead to violence divorced from any kind of real-world, rational, terrestrial, political grievance? Sure, of course. We've seen that time and time again. You know, if you indoctrinate somebody from when they're young, so, hey, you're going to be a suicide bomber, you're going to be a jihadist, and that's the right thing to do, then yeah, you don't need to have political grievances or this want for revenge or vengeance or retribution in order to have somebody become a terrorist. So that's true. There's standalone, ideological, political, and religious terrorism. But then there's also the other kind of terrorism, which is, hey, you killed my aunt, you killed my uncle, you killed my baby girl, you killed my grandma, you killed this person, that person, my village is destroyed, we have no water, we have no food, we have no hope, we have no freedom, and now I will pick up an AK-47 and target Americans because look at what you did to me. That also exists. And by the way, you give a better argument to the crazy Islamic fundamentalists, whether it's the Taliban, al-qaeda, ISIS, or whoever in the Middle East, when you have the U.S. do this. When the U.S. does this, you just gave them their best recruitment tool ever. Previously, they may have said, I'm not interested in those crazy religious lunatics. I want nothing to do with them. I'm against them. But then if a U.S. drone strike kills your family and they come around and say, hey, by the way, I am the only person in this area who's going to protect you, guess what's going to happen? Oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes people will say, fuck yeah, give me an AK-47. Sign me up. They might not even care about the religious angle. They might not even care about other things that the group stands for. They just think, the Americans destroyed my life. Now I must fight back. I must fight back. And remember, the evidence bears out exactly what I'm saying here. There are more terrorists today than there were at the beginning of the war on terror. So the whole point of the war on terror just went up in smoke. If your point is we got to try to eliminate terrorism or limit the number of terrorists, that's why we're doing a war on terror. Well, you didn't. The opposite happened. This is just like the war on drugs. We're going to eliminate drug use in the United States, or we're going to limit it tremendously. Really? Well, since you flushed $1 million down the toilet and you've been doing the war on drugs for decades, it's gotten worse. More people do drugs today. More of them do it. So you're just empirically, objectively, factually, numerically wrong in your belief. And finally, I saved the most stunning fact for last. There was a recent leaked internal memo. This is from the drone papers. Again, this happened a few months ago. This came out. We found that, quote, nearly 90% of the people killed by U.S. drone strikes in Afghanistan were not the intended targets. 90% of people killed in U.S. drone strikes in Afghanistan were not the intended targets. You think you're fighting terrorism? You are the terrorist. And you also are creating more terrorists when you do this. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not the kind of person who is a total isolationist, where I say, under no circumstance can the U.S. or the West do anything ever. No, as I've discussed before, if there's a genocide going on somewhere, we should have the UN get together, NATO get together, we all abide by international law and go through the proper procedures and processes, and then, yeah, let's go after this problem together. Together, let's do it. So not the U.S. above other nations, the U.S. among other nations, and we attack the problem. But outside of self-defense, which is when we should use our own military, of course, and outside of the international community coming together to stop a genocide, mind your business, okay? Get the fuck out. What are you doing? Because if 90% of the time you're killing the wrong people, and then you keep fucking doing it, your I have great intentions argument kind of falls flat. If somebody's driving a car and they kill somebody, but they weren't trying to, they committed manslaughter. Okay, well, by the way, you're still going to get jail time, of course, but you're going to get less jail time than somebody who did it on purpose. Makes sense, right? But if said person, when they get out of jail, immediately runs over another person with their car, whoops, accident, I guess it's manslaughter, and then that happens a third time and a fourth time, and then 76 times later, they're in court. You know, the manslaughter charge doesn't ring as true, does it? People go, that's kind of bullshit. Maybe you were trying to do it. Same fucking thing here. 90% of the time, you get the wrong people. What do you mean? I meant well. I have good intentions. Mind your business. This is not... well, I'm not a bad person. I'm a good guy by definition. The same fucking argument every empire throughout history has used to say, absolve ourselves of our own sins. Well, even when we do bad things, we're doing it because you made us, because we had to do it. So when I do bad things, it doesn't count. You can write it off because I have such great intentions. I meant so well in doing it as I killed 90% the wrong people. Fuck off. Stop doing the wrong policy here. We all know if it was any other nation that 90% of the time killed the wrong people in some war they're doing or some drone strikes they're doing, would any of us say, it's cool, don't worry about it. International law, massacring the wrong people repeatedly, forget about it. No. We'd all say, rogue terrorist nation. They must be stopped and they have to be put in their place. So let's not be hypocrites here, lest you want regime change in the U.S. by some foreign force that comes in and topples us. Maybe we should start abiding by international law too. No more torture, okay? No more of this shit. No more illegal wars. Call me crazy. I like the U.S. to abide by the same standards as everybody else.